Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of the national anthem. I'd like to invite Trooper Amanda Bresnik to the podium to sing the national anthem.
Detail. Order. Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Right. Face. Forward. March. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right. Left. 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 Right.
Please be seated. Wow. Every year she is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome, and let me be the first to wish each and every one of you happy International Women's Day. Welcome to the ornate room of the State House for our 8th annual International Women's Day celebration. Let me begin by thanking the Rhode Island State Police for organizing that stellar all-female honor guard, and for Trooper Bresnik, her breathtaking rendition of the national anthem. I think she is gone, but let's join in a round of applause for her. I also want to thank this year's co-host, Representative Teresa Tanzi, my friend, for co-sponsoring this year's event. Teresa, thank you for your friendship, for your help with this event, and for your dedicated service to our state. We are pleased to be joined by many dignitaries, and of course, whenever I start to name people, you always risk forgetting someone, so I apologize for that. My colleague will acknowledge the reps at the appropriate time, and of course, I want to acknowledge our fabulous ceiling breaker herself, our Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea. Another ceiling breaker, Colonel Ann Assumpico, our honoree, of course, Tina Goncalves. And I have seen several of my Senate colleagues, so I see Senator Quesada, Senator Calkin, my friend Senator Lombardi, my friend Senator Chacon, Senator Felag. Are there any other senators? I don't want to, hey, and Senator Picard is here with us as well. So thank you all for being here. And International Women's Day was first celebrated in the early 1900s. And for years, on different days throughout the world, countries would gather, women would gather to celebrate our struggle and our accomplishments. But in 1977, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution finally proclaiming, as they had had different days throughout the world, March 8th, International Women's Day throughout the world. So today, we gather as women and men, and we join in solidarity with others throughout the world to recognize outstanding achievement by women and to demand full equality, politically, economically, and socially. Yeah. This year, there are more than 1,000 International Women's Day events that will take place throughout the world, and the United Nations each year has a theme for International Women's Day, and this year's theme is Press for Progress. And what I would add is that here in Rhode Island, we are on a full court press for women's progress. This year, our momentum is incredibly galvanized by the strong Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, both of which have finally exposed the sheer volume of sexual abuse in our nation and just how horrifyingly commonplace it is. Unfortunately, nothing can be commonplace without society's tacit approval, and we know that too many people turn a blind eye to sexual harassment, abuse, and assault. Witness this year's horrifying news that a supposed doctor abused over 250 young women involved with the United States gymnastics team. To all of those who harass, abuse, or assault, we say to you, time's up. Women are rising up like never before to end these disturbing phenomena. And on International Women's Day today here in Rhode Island, we demand that this be the year that our legislature addresses not only these issues, but also pay equity and women's reproductive freedom. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to my good friend, Representative Teresa Tanzi.
Good afternoon. I'm so honored to have been asked to co-host this year's celebration of International Women's Day, and I'm especially honored to be in the presence of so many women who've persevered and succeeded in male-dominated environments and fields. I have tremendous respect for all of you. I know just how challenging it is to prove yourself, to fight to be heard, to fight to be taken seriously, and to be judged by your accomplishments. While most of us with 2 X chromosomes face these kinds of challenges every day, and more so for those in fields where women are in the minority, I'm heartened by the conversations that are finally going on about respect, equality, and what is appropriate in the workplace and in society. Beginning with the Me Too hashtag, and continuing with Time's Up and other movements, recent months have brought a long overdue wave of public discussion about what women deserve, what we should not have to endure, and how much work still lies ahead for us to create a world in which our daughters and granddaughters might someday be paid equally, treated fairly, and not face undue obstacles in advancing at work and in the world. In keeping with this year's International Women's Day theme, Press for Progress, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate all of you for the boldness that you've already demonstrated, but I also ask you to be even bolder. I have learned many things in these recent years, but if I've learned anything over the course of my entire career, particularly in recent months, it's that progress isn't something that's comfortable. It's hard, it's risky, and it relies on people putting themselves out there to challenge those in power, those who would perpetuate the status quo, and those who are ignorant or oblivious to injustice. None of us should trust that progress is something that will just happen, like a sort of evolution. It's up to each and every one of us to step out of our comfort zones and to do the things that advance equality for all of us. Some of those things are personal, like learning how to effectively ask for a raise or an advancement at work, which makes many women very uncomfortable, but cannot help only herself, but her family. And this will also contribute to gradually wearing down the perceptions and the expectations that serve as roadblocks to all women in the workplace. Other things we can do are to help each other. One of the points I've been making for months is that a critical element to harassment, education programs, and ending harassment in general is bystander advocacy. Silence is acceptance. We, and all people, regardless of gender, must be willing to call out an injustice, and especially when we are not the victim. Victims are already reeling. The only way we're going to make progress is if all of us who understand injustice, be it harassment, inequality, or discrimination, are willing and able to speak up and say it's inappropriate when it is. That's how we change the norms in our society. As I look at the portraits in this room and the halls beyond, which contain not one single female face, I'm soberly reminded of just how much work remains to be done. Most imperatively, we need to encourage more women to run for office. I am in continual awe of the brilliance, dedication, and insights of my fellow female legislators, and that's why I want to see more of them filling the chambers in the House and the Senate, in town halls, in school administration buildings, in boardrooms, and so on. And that's why we will continue to gather here each and every year on March 8th, which the United Nations has delegated as International Women's Day, not just to trumpet the many great accomplishments of women, but to remind ourselves that the struggle is by no means over. So thank you all for being here.
Amen, sister.
And hopefully for joining us in the fight. I do, before I introduce the next speaker, want to recognize the House members that are here. And I do get very nervous when it comes to naming names. So I want to acknowledge Camille Vella-Wilkins, Mia Ackerman, Anastasia Williams, Lauren Carson, Carol Hagan-McAtee, Marcia Rangland-Vassell, Deborah Giero, Grace Diaz, Edie Agello, and Susan Donovan, and Julie Casimiro. And I noticed that Mike Morin and Erin Regenberg were here earlier. And is there anyone else that I am missing at the moment? No, I want to thank you all for being here. It is so deeply meaningful that you're here to celebrate this day with us today. And now it is my honor to introduce the Secretary of State, Nellie Gorbea.
Thank you so much, Rep. Tanzi, and let me thank you and Senator Nesselbush for putting together this incredible celebration. I'm very excited to be here among so many inspiring female leaders. It really does the soul good to bring us all together, and particularly leaders like Colonel Ann Assumpico. And I would also acknowledge, of course, our first female police chief in Pawtucket, Tina Goncalves, both of whom I had the pleasure of being at your swearing-ins. And it does a body good to see progress, to be a witness to things improving. And so to all of my colleagues in government, both my female colleagues and my male colleagues who are here, it's wonderful to be with all of you here today. Now, as many of you know, it's not easy being a woman leader. And so, because I have the Rhode Island State Archives, I can look into our past history, some stuff that we might not know. So, if you want to hear about how hard it is to be a woman leader, just ask Isabelle Ahern O'Neill of Providence. She was Rhode Island's first female legislator back in 1923. During her time in office as both a representative and a senator, she submitted 150 pieces of legislation. Most of them were aimed at improving the lives of women. Unfortunately, not one passed. But nevertheless, she persisted and paved the way for many of us here today. And, these were, of course, very radical bills, such as an act prohibiting discrimination between men and women teachers, and another requiring the appointment of patrol women in cities and towns. These are all available on display in our State House library, so after the ceremony, if you want to take a look at them, we have them in their pop-up exhibit at the State Library. And so, definitely we've made some progress since 1923, but we still face a lot of challenges. And to Rep. Tanzi's comment about the lack of women on the on the walls of this building. It has been a dream of mine to perhaps carve out some space in one of the walls. And perhaps the women here, with the help of some of the men, we could do an area where we could feature the first women, both Democrats and Republicans, who have been firsts in the history of our state. And so I throw that out there. My staff is probably having a heart attack. But I throw that out now in public as something that really we should work on and make it a part of the State House tour. Because I want our daughters and our sons to be able to see the diversity that is in leadership in Rhode Island. And so, more details on that to come. So, you know, for many women, the path to leadership has had many detours. You know, we navigate these structures in business and government that were really never made with us in mind. But structures and detours have really never stopped us before. And so here we are today, in meetings at the State House, involved at the decision-making table. And in order for us to stay here, we need to support one another and encourage others to join us. So it's wonderful to be here to do that, to celebrate, to recharge the batteries, to celebrate, and to continue to work hard, not just for women, but for all Rhode Island. Thanks.
Wow, I did not know all that stuff. That's awesome. Thank you. I know we have been joined here by a few other of my colleagues. I understand that Leader McCaffrey was here, and now I see, of course, Senator Gallo, Senator Fogarty, Senator Lynch-Prada, Senator Coyne, Senator Algier. So thank you so much. I know we're all incredibly busy. I see Rep Lombardi, even though my co-host here is introducing the reps, but all righty. Ladies and gentlemen, before we turn to lauding our honoree, let us pause to remember some sobering facts. While figures vary state to state, nationally, working women still earn somewhere around 80 cents on the dollar for every man's dollar. The World Economic Forum predicted in 2014 that it would take until 2095 for us to achieve global gender parity. But 1 year later, in 2015, due to a slowdown in the pace of progress, that same group indicated that the gender gap would not close until the year 2133. So we need to stop going backwards and get going forwards, hence the press for progress. Globally, women fare far worse than we do here in America. In too many countries, girls are still abusively forced to marry and have children, while they themselves are still children. And in some countries, female genital mutilation horrifyingly still exists. A high school education remains elusive for millions of girls throughout the world, a fact which should be criminal, given that education is one of the most powerful tools we have as women to take control of our lives, to escape poverty and abuse, and to succeed. In America and throughout the world, women continue to be disproportionately victimized by violence. Domestic violence doggedly persists, and sexual abuse and assault are unfortunately legion. And I always say that it takes one bad person to hurt another in that way, but it takes a rape culture for it to be allowed to continue year after year, and the needle on the issue of sexual abuse has moved painfully slow. America has long ago put a man on the moon, and if we as a culture really wanted to stop domestic violence and sexual assault, I think we could. We also may be tempted to think of slavery as a thing of the past, but human sex trafficking is a form of modern slavery that disproportionately affects women and occurs today in this very state and throughout our nation. So, against these sobering facts, International Women's Day is a day for us to come together and join hands with our sisters and brothers here in Rhode Island and abroad, and to recognize our collective plight, but also to laud our accomplishments. And today, we laud the accomplishment of a bold and extraordinary woman. I'd like to introduce one of our honorees last year, the first female colonel of the Rhode Island State Police, my friend, Ann Assumpico, a trailblazer herself, who will introduce and laud this year's honoree. Chief Assumpico. And I also saw a couple of our judges here. I see Judge Lorene D'Ambra, I see Judge Dominic DeSandro, Chief Clements, I think, is here, several members of the Pawtucket Police Department, so thank you so much. And Chief Susia, the fire chief, is also here, so thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you again, Senator Nesselbush. It's been 8 years that the Senator has been hosting this, and it's opened the doors for many women in law enforcement in all aspects of lives, and it's great to see trailblazers in the audience. 1 year ago, I had the honor of standing where you are today, being recognized as the first woman to be appointed as superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police. Chief Goncalves, let me congratulate you on being chosen as the first woman chief of the Pawtucket Police Department. The chief is a 19-year member of the Pawtucket Police and holds a Juris Doctorate from Roger Williams School of Law. She has a Bachelor of Science. She has worked very hard on the Pawtucket Police Department, and I know this because I have friends who have retired and who currently work for the Pawtucket Police Department. They respect her. She worked her way through the ranks, and after 19 years as a member of your police department and serving your community, this is truly an honor and a well-deserved accomplishment. You and others who have been honored here are proof of how far we've come. We are finally being recognized for all that we do, both at home and in the workforce. You are one of many women who do both, serving as a role model for your two daughters and their friends. But there are still barriers to be torn down, especially in the law enforcement field. Consider this: only a few decades ago, there were public protests against women entering law enforcement. Men refused to ride with them, and they had to file lawsuits to advance. Those women made both of our paths easier. But even today, women are only a small fraction of law enforcement, and they hold even fewer leadership roles. 5 years ago, a survey of 1,500 law enforcement agencies nationwide found that only 169 were led by women. That's only about 11%. Just last year, the Denver Post reported that only 50 of the nation's largest police departments are led by women. As leaders of our respective agencies, I hope that you and I are helping to make this path easier for women who follow in our footsteps. For now, I look forward to the day when any woman who wants to be a police officer will be treated with the same respect as any man. I look forward to the day when a woman enters the police training academy without feeling outnumbered and out of place, without having to work twice as hard to get the same respect and recognition given to men. I look forward to the day when we do not have to fight to prove we deserve to be the chief, because everyone will see that we can do this job as well, if not better, than any man. I look forward to the day when we're not celebrating someone simply for being the first woman in her role. Instead, maybe someday, on International Women's Day, we will celebrate all women for the amazing things we do at home and at work, in our communities and around the world. Look around this room, all of us here. You've done some pretty amazing things, and you're trailblazers. And the Pawtucket Police Department and people of Pawtucket should consider themselves extremely lucky to have an amazing woman as their chief of police. Congratulations to Chief Goncalves as the recipient of the 2018 International Women's Day Award.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to express my appreciation to Senator Nesselbush and Representative Tanzi for honoring me today. It's been such an honor when I've received that phone call from Senator Nesselbush. As you know, I've worked with her for several years, so I'd also like to thank
Our police chief,
Yeah.
Pawtucket.
Secretary of State Gorbea, and of course, Colonel Assumpico. She was one of the first to welcome me with open arms into the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association. I'd also like to recognize fellow dignitaries in the room, and also Director Vartanian and Colonel Clemens, of which Colonel Clemens has also been one of the first to welcome me with open arms to the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association. It's been quite an honor. I'd like to recognize the fact that today is a day that we celebrate not only Women's Day, but women moving forward and forging a career into non-traditional careers. When I was asked if I was interested in becoming Pawtucket's first female police chief, I asked myself, are you ready to be that leader? Are you prepared to lead the men and women of the Pawtucket Police Department? And also, are you prepared to be a role model to women involved in law enforcement, involved in non-traditional careers, and just young women in general? After careful consideration, I looked at what I thought a leader was, and to me, leadership is a gift given by those that follow us. It's a gift I was given and will be eternally grateful for approximately a year ago. It's a gift I've earned and continue to earn through dedication, hard work, and self-sacrifice. It's also a gift I don't take lightly. I realize that being a female in a high-ranking position in a non-traditional career gives me an opportunity to be a role model for young women considering not only a job in law enforcement, but for any job where they may be in the minority. It's an opportunity for me to encourage my two young daughters that they are capable of pursuing a career that their hearts desire. I remind them on a daily basis that they are strong, they are beautiful, and they are intelligent young women who can accomplish anything they put their minds to through their dedication, hard work. The numbers are still staggering at the percentage of women in law enforcement. Back in the 70s, there was only 2% that represented women in law enforcement, and most of those jobs were clerical jobs. At the present day, there's still only 12 to 13% of women in law enforcement. There's a multitude of reasons why the numbers continue to be so low. But I know that from my position, I can assure that women have the opportunity to pursue a career in law enforcement if they so choose, and an equal opportunity in Pawtucket to pursue a career in law enforcement and to also pursue a career in advancement if that's what they choose to do. Each law enforcement hired, despite their gender, has a special skill set that they bring to the table to law enforcement. And as a police department, we use that to forge a strong bond with the community, regardless of gender. My philosophy has always been and will continue to be that the best person for the job in Pawtucket will be the one that receives the job. A woman's choice to enter a non-traditional career, even in law enforcement, is a difficult choice. It's one that they have to balance between their professional life and their family life. In law enforcement in particular, it remains a balancing act. Through your career, if you decide to continue for a career in advancement, because with advancement becomes change. Change in hours, change in schedules, change in commitment. I lived that firsthand through my ascension through the ranks. With young children, it's difficult to explain to them why I have to work so late, why I miss sporting events, why I miss holidays. But with time, I hope they realize that the sacrifice that we've made as a family are sacrifices that we've made for the community and young women in general. I would be remiss if I didn't mention when I think that my strength and perseverance, where it has come from. For those of you who know my mother, you probably would describe her as a strong, hardworking, and sometimes stubborn, okay, maybe always stubborn, woman who would do anything for anybody, whether she knew them or not. She has always been supportive of my decision to enter a career in law enforcement. There is not a member in my family that is in the law enforcement career. I was the first. She has never wavered in her support of my furtherance of my career. And as an adult, I realized the sacrifice she made by working 2 and 3 jobs at the time to be able to maintain a household, and also to ensure that my sister and I were given the opportunities for personal growth and development. I'd like to close by saying my goal is to hear the community that I serve in Pawtucket say that I've done a great job as a police chief because of the skill set that I brought to the table, and that I was a female. Not that I did a great job in such a non-traditional career, despite the fact that I was a female. I look forward to being an active influence on young women who decide to have a career in law enforcement or any career in a non-traditional field. Thank you.
You are awesome. You're a great speaker. Awesome.
And I just want to recognize some additional folks who came in, Representative Giarrusso, Representative Hearn, Representative Solomon, Representative Canario, Leader McCaffrey. I want to thank you all for coming by. And to close us out today with a prayer, it's a great honor to introduce a woman who I heard speak once, and she has forever left an imprint in my heart, Reverend Nikita McAllister.
Thank you. I will say I am a pastor of the Bethany Church that's in Pawtucket, so just wanted to throw that out there. If you would just bow for a word of prayer with me. Today we thank God for an opportunity to commemorate this occasion representing International Women's Day, a celebration of our diversity, of our many hues, colors, races, heights, and sizes. We celebrate today with thanksgiving and words of blessings because we're thankful for our foremothers and our forefathers who have gone before us. Those such as the daughters of Zelophehad, as stated in the Hebrew Bible, Numbers 27. These 5 sisters, Noah, Tirzah, Milcah, Mocha, and Hogah, who spoke out against cultural norms and traditions, customs, and systemic and structural evils. These 5 sisters successfully demanded their inheritance as equals. We are thankful and grateful for the women who persisted, such as Susan B. Anthony, who, like our current representatives and senators, campaign and continue to politically engage with others so that all human rights are recognized. Trailblazers, such as our Governor Gina Raimondo, and Chief Tina. We thank you and we bless God for other people who were bold, like Sojourner Truth, who in her statement, "Ain't I a woman," where we can celebrate our boldness and acknowledge who we are and not be ashamed to be created in God's image, those who are fearfully and wonderfully made. We also pray that God would heal the wounds that so many women have suffered, those who have been survivors, that you would allow the balm that would just heal us so that we can continue to pave the pathway for others, that we would allow others to speak out and allow those truths to ring power forever and ever. We are also thankful for those who took their place, those who were first on the front lines of the battlefield for justice and for equality, those who demanded $1 for $1's work, those who continually care for all of us as God's creation. Military veterans, civil servants, teachers, mothers, grandmothers, and our daughters to come. We just ask that you would again bless our hands, and I would ask that if you are sitting next to someone that you grab their hand. And as we're squeezing the person's hand who we hold, we acknowledge their presence, their existence, and all that you have gifted them to be. And we ask that as we celebrate their uniqueness, that they continue to have an imprint and have their footprint so that we can shine a spotlight on all that women do. In the mighty, matchless name of Jesus, and for those who recognize the Spirit, the omniscient God, we ask that God will continue to bless us. Amen.
Amen. Wow. Wow, Reverend, that was amazing. I see our Senate President, President Dominic Ruggiero, has just come in. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for joining us. And In addition to thanking the Reverend for that amazing closing prayer, I want to thank Colonel Ann Assumpico, Chief Tina Goncalves, and my co-host this year, Representative Teresa Tanzi. And I also want to thank the women behind the women of this event, and that would be my wonderful State House Secretary, Monica Audiello, and my fabulous assistant, Natasha King. Please give them a round of applause for all their hard work. So today we pray for peace, equality, and human rights with the fervent hope that the next wave of feminism further elevates the United States of America and finally embraces Africa, Asia, and our sisters in the Arab world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a wonderful day. I love International Women's Day. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you all for coming. This concludes our 2018 celebration of International Women's Day. And thanks to the courtesy of Gaspero's Liquors on Federal Hill, I want to invite you all to join me in enjoying some international wines outside the stateroom. Thank you all for coming, and congratulations, Tina Goncalves.